Apostates Anonymous, the show you turn to when you're no longer an evangelical. With your hosts, authors Keith Giles and Matthew J. DiStefano. Welcome back to Apostates Anonymous. We're sure that you've caught up with all the episodes since our relaunch, but in case you haven't, head back a couple episodes, give them a listen, then come back here. Keith, how are you?
Well, Matt, I am doing pretty good considering, and I'm very, very happy to be back on this episode of Apostates Anonymous. I gotta say, if I haven't said it before, this is so much fun for me. I love doing this.
This one might not be as fun. We've had some
kidding?
heavy ones. I mean, last time we talked about suffering. This time we're going to talk about the abort. Two men are going to talk about the abortion thing going on with the SCOTUS leak. And
yeah. Now you have. Let me just. You haven't had an abortion, have you?
No, I've had none.
I haven't either. I've never.
You
had
haven't
an
either.
So
I said Mike and I talked about it on the bonfire sessions years ago. Like, take everything that we say about abortion with a giant block of salt. You know?
Yeah, because yes, this will be a podcast where two guys are going to talk about something they really don't know anything about, but have some opinions and hopefully some information. I have some facts. I have some statistics.
You have some facts and figures
to share, and hopefully there's. I know for a fact there's going to be some good content in this episode.
Well, we have a somewhat related sponsor today.
Very appropriate. Very appropriate.
If we could get to that sponsor before we get into the meat of this, that'd be great. So if our producer could cue that up, that'd be fantastic. Are you struggling to find your place in the world? Have white privilege but need to know how to use it? Do you love beer? Well, you're in luck. At the Brett Kavanaugh Academy of Arts and Culture, we will show you how to hone your unique talents, setting you up for success later in life. By attending our prestigious academy, you'll not only learn the fine art of crying on demand, but you'll be able to chug a 12-pack of your favorite IPA without consequence. Sure, you'll probably get blacked out drunk, but what happens after that is not your responsibility, because we at the BKAAC will show you that with our education model, anything is possible. Sign up today at bkaac.org and receive 20% off your first semester's tuition. If you're a straight white male, use the promo code BEER2022. That's BEER 2022 to save an additional 20% off your first year's books. And we'll see you on campus. Well,
wow.
Thank you. I mean, I've looked into that academy and I'm considering biting the bullet. It's a little expensive if you go to the website.
But you don't get to use the discount code.
I don't, unfortunately.
You're not a straight white Christian
male. Right. But for those who are, please use that promo code. tell them we sent you.
Right.
Yeah. Keith, do you like IPA? Are you a beer fan?
I am not a beer guy. Here's the thing. I am not a beer. My youngest son, David, we were just in Portland visiting him last week. And he pretty much forced us to go to this place, like some brewery, and we did flights. And he's trying to get me to like beer. And I've tried Guinness a couple times. I don't mind Guinness. But I'm still not a beer guy. I'm really more like, if I'm going to drink sort of casually out in public, it's probably going to be a glass of wine. But I do make old fashions at home on a pretty regular basis. I do like old fashions.
I don't drink any longer, but old fashioned, you got the bitters, the orange peel.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic. It's really good.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed with celiac before the whole microbrew explosion, right? Uh-huh. So there were some decent beers when I was able to have them, but you'd get so full. I mean, I don't know how people drink like a 12-pack. I mean, I know people who drink like 16 beers a night.
dude. I'm not going
That's
to name
just like
names, but I
I
know.
won't either.
I also know people that I've
Like,
sit and watched them just nonstop all night. Go up,
doesn't make
finish a beer, get up, get another one, drink another
doesn't make
beer, get up, get another
sense.
one. I'm like, and here's the funny thing: they never appear drunk. I'm like, how are you doing that? I can't
I
imagine.
mean,
I guess
it's all
you have to
tolerance.
build. You got to build up. Yes, you got to build up your
Yeah.
tolerance. Yeah.
But I even if I mean, there are some gluten-free beers that are fine, but
Yeah.
it's not something that I'm like, oh man, I really miss a beer. I mean, every now and then, like if it's a hot summer day and you did some yard
Sure.
work, it's like a crisp beer sounds really good. But other than that, like it's just not my thing. I never got into
Yeah. Well, me either.
the whole
I've
deal.
never was a beer
So
guy. Yeah.
I guess the academy is not for us,
I guess
you
not.
know.
Sorry.
So, but for those who are listening, if you enjoy beer and you are, a straight white male and you want to get cultured in the fine arts of Brett Kavanaghism, then please check out that website, use the promo codes and check it out.
Yeah. I mean, there are some really good. It's really good to have that skill, if nothing else. To build add to your skill set the ability to cry on demand. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it seems that Rittenhouse attended the academy,
yeah,
so
I think he
there's,
did.
that's
Yeah,
probably his alma mater.
he's an alumni.
Um,
Yeah, and
he's an alum.
I think it's really important too. Like white straight Christian males really do need to know how to leverage their white privilege a little more, a little better. Sometimes I'm just not aware of it. Like, you don't want to just accidentally take advantage of that. Like, you need to
Right.
really intentionally understand. I'm a white. Damn it,
Yeah.
I'm a white straight Christian male, and it's sort of like if you get the discount and you don't ask for it. Come on. You
Right.
got to be
Yeah.
you got to be doing
I
that.
think leverage is the right word. Be intentional, in this whole age of like life coaching and intentionality and being present, like
Uh-huh.
own that and take advantage of it because honestly, like straight white men have been oppressed for a while now. And so it's we need to see
They're a
the
minority.
script we need
They're
to see the script
practically.
getting flipped.
That's right. I am nervous having this conversation because I realize
I hear you stuttering a little bit.
because people seem to be immune to satire. And
Yeah, they do.
my fear is that, like, if this was the first episode of this podcast anybody ever heard, by this point in the podcast, after that sponsor and what we're saying they might be thinking these guys are total douchebags.
Total douchebag. I often, I mean, I'm always, I've been obviously writing satire, but I still get surprised that people have not picked up on the fact that, I mean, it's like my favorite genre, so I
Yes.
can't help but write it or talk like it, but that people, I think you commented on a recent one,
Yes.
about,
You do
this.
realize this is satire. Yes. No, you had
No,
written.
they don't.
No,
I tag everything with satire on Pathos
right. So,
still.
do you want to talk about the one you just did? Because it actually will lead us into this topic.
It leads us in, yeah. So it was there's it was a satire piece about some explosion at a laboratory, as they say in England, a
Uh-huh.
laboratory, where an embryonic genetic laboratory that also had a daycare for their staff. So I had to set it up where there'd be babies or infants as well as clusters of
Embryos.
cells.
Yes. Yes.
And there's one of the daycare workers leaves the daycare to save the petri dishes that are holding these
Like
clusters of
47.
cells.
She saved
40 she
47.
saved 47 lives, but she left behind the
That one
3-month-old
baby.
and one
Yeah.
baby who died in the fire. And that was the story. Obviously it's like, okay, it's to get you to think about our topic today, abortion and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And someone comes in, it's just like, this is so sad. Like,
oh, this
I
is
mean,
so
it
sad.
is. If it's a real story, yes, it is. It's sad that the truth behind the satire is sad. Yes,
Yes, it is.
that people think this way, but I was
Yeah.
hoping people would find it funny. But
Yeah. Well, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
well, good.
Well, so yes, so that leads us to our topic, our discussion, because it's kind of like I can remember years ago. Wendy and I came home from college, opened the door. We had just gotten married. Opened the door to our house. We used to leave our TV turned on. This is Like because in El Paso, you don't want people to break into your house when you're not there, so you leave your TV on, so it sounded like there was people inside the house.
Oh yeah.
So we,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
open the door and the TV's on, and as I open the door and I see the TV, the Berlin Wall is being torn down, and we both stood there stunned, like what? Like you would never have even. There was no hint that that was about to happen, and all of a sudden,
Right.
the Berlin Wall is gone. We're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, and it's kind of like that, not in a good way, but it's shocking that you just kind of like wake up one day and oh, by the way, Roe v. Wade is being overturned by the Supreme Court. You're like, wait, what? What? I didn't even think this was something that was possible. That was in the planning, and but apparently, yes. It looks like, I mean, it hasn't officially happened, but it sure looks like it's about to happen. I'm not sure what would stop it from happening. Um, then, yeah, after what, 40 something years? Is that right? Has it been like 40? Close to 40 something
But
years?
before my time, I believe, yeah.
It was the 70s, whatever it was.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Roe v. Wade, which has been a precedent for all this whole time for a woman's right to an abortion and autonomy over her own body, is now suddenly just being overturned for, let's be honest, purely political reasons. This is not based on like the Constitution, because the Constitution, I don't believe you can truly use in the Constitution back up removing rights from women who have had such a right for this long, right, for close to 50 years, to just all of a sudden say, oh no, we're going to take this right away from you on the constitutional basis. That's again, I'm not a judge or a lawyer or a woman, but I don't believe that that is really true. So I think it really is purely politically motivated.
It seems like that's the precedence that has been set. Like it seemed like there was a plan in place to get certain judges, certain justices in order to push this, because other than this, what else do a lot of conservatives stand for? I mean, what
Right.
is their platform? I don't really know what their platform is. It seemed like, I mean, a lot of talk of guns and Jesus and God and anti-abortion, and so this is like their one thing, and it just it boggles my mind. Like, I'm not a constitutional scholar, so I don't really know that
Right.
angle so
Right.
well, but it really boggles my mind that it seems like they want to build this perpetual straw man and demonization of people who are pro-choice as if we're pro-death. And I don't claim to be like a medical expert, and I'm certainly not a woman, and I don't have a uterus or fallopian tubes or a vulva, so
Yeah.
I can't get pregnant. But it seems like just from my limited understanding of medicine and healthcare, that it is just simply a healthcare decision.
Yeah.
Like how can you tell someone what to do in case of, like, let's say an ectopic pregnancy where the
Yeah.
fetus is not in the uterus, it's on the outside. Like the
Yeah.
only treatment is abortion, right?
Right. Right.
So how can you say, oh, we're going to ban this thing, and at the same time say that you're pro-life, because like the woman
Yeah.
who's pregnant like, will likely die if they don't have this treatment. That I don't know how you can talk out of both sides of your mouth and say that you're pro-life. I mean, I
Yeah.
understand you're defining a fetus as a baby, but the point of my satire piece, I'm not the first person to come up with something like that, is that I don't think you actually believe that. I really
Right.
don't. I
Right.
don't think most people actually believe that a fetus is a baby, because I mean they liken it to murder, right? And they'll say you're murdering a baby. But if there was an actual clinic in your town where they were taking infants and toddlers and murdering them, like you wouldn't just be on social media like talking your shit. Like you would, like, either you're lying, you're full of shit, or you're lazy or something, because you would be doing something. I guarantee if there was a clinic on the corner who was like, moms were bringing in their kids and leaving like Abraham and Isaac, like coming
Yeah.
down the mountain without them,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you would do
Well,
something much more than just talk your
but
shit on Facebook.
yeah, but listen, I know people who are that level of like out there, and again, I won't name names, but years ago, in Orange County, when we were doing our house church, there was an older couple that was in our church. They hung out with us for about a year in our house church, and the husband was really, anti-abortion, literally like with a sign out there every weekend protesting the abortion
Well,
clinic.
at least he's being consistent. I'll give him
Right.
that.
But let me tell you, that guy was so anti-abortion that he literally sat at my kitchen table and in front of everybody else in the house church. We're all sitting there, me and Wendy and my kids and everybody in our house church. We're all sitting there sharing a meal together. And he begins to tell Wendy and I that because we took birth control, we were abortionists. We had abortions because sex was for procreation. And by taking a pill that prevented us from having an abortion, we were going against the will of God. We were preventing a child from being born. And the fact that we had miscarriages after the fact was basically God's punishment to us because we had prevented these other babies from being born. And so there are Christians who are so eaten up by this idea of that life begins at conception, that they have taken it to those kinds of extremes that you can't even take the pill or use any kind of birth control.
They say that though. They say that, but I bet they get blowjobs.
But
like, you know what I mean? Like,
this guy's never had a blowjob. I'm pretty sure.
Well, maybe that's true. But you know what you know what I'm saying though. Like the people who say that, I knew people like that too. They wouldn't wear a condom. They wouldn't do any sort of birth control. And they had like 5 kids. But I would be willing to bet most everything in my savings, and it's not a lot, but it's my savings.
Yes.
That they have spilt their seed. They have
just had sex for the fun of having sex.
For the fun of having sex. Like, you never had a blowjob, you never masturbated, you never had anal, you never pulled out. None of this shit. Like, I think that's what I'm saying. I think they're lying. I really do. Like, I try not to say that. I try not to add intent to people.
Yeah.
But I just call bullshit on that.
But what about older couples where the woman is beyond, she's in menopause, so they're not allowed to have sex?
Right, or you've never. I know friends, and I won't name names, but I know friends who can't have kids, even though they're of age normally to have kids.
They better not be having sex because God will be Jesus Christ.
See, it's all. I think it's all just. It's a type of virtue signaling to me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you really believe that. I really don't. Like, you would do more. Like I said, to my original point. Like.
Yeah.
And I'm not. And. The people who picket Planned Parenthood, I think they're wrong and they're ill-advised, but at least they're doing something a little more consistent to what they're saying. But most people who are anti-abortion, who liken it to murder, so that's all you would be doing if literal babies were being killed in clinics all throughout your town? Like, come on.
Yeah, you just every 4 years you go and place a vote. That's what you do.
That's what you do.
Here's the thing. Yeah, but historically, right, Christianity in America has not, for the majority of its time, been as anti-abortion as it is. I mentioned this in my book, Jesus Untangled, that I think it was 1962 or something like that. The president of the Southern Baptist Convention, his name was W.A. Criswell, wrote an article.
That sounds like a white dude.
It sure does. I promise you, he's a white guy. Published an article in Christianity Today magazine saying that biblically, that according to the scriptures, God does not consider the preborn to be fully human because of the laws in Leviticus, where if you kill another person, it's life for life, eye for eye, right? So if you kill someone, you commit violence, you cause another person to die, you should be put to death. That's a capital offense. But if you cause a woman to miscarry, if you injure a woman who's pregnant and she loses the baby, you basically just pay like a cow or something, right? You offer livestock. There's payment. So that's not a capital offense. It's not, again, according to Old Testament Levitical law, God didn't consider the preborn to be equally human as someone who's born. And so he said that he even says, this is a quote from this article, I've always felt that it was only after a child was born and had a life separate from its mother that it became an individual person. And it has always, therefore, seemed to me that what is best for the mother and for the future should be allowed. And actually, here's what's crazy, too. W. Barry Garrett of the Baptist Press said this is in response to Roe versus Wade. This was the response of this guy in the Baptist Press magazine. He said, quote, religious liberty, human equality, and justice are advanced by this Supreme Court abortion decision. Isn't that crazy? In 1971, delegates to the Southern Baptist Convention in St. Louis, Missouri, passed a resolution encouraging Southern Baptists to, quote, work for legislation that will allow the possibility of abortion under such conditions as rape, incest, clear evidence of severe fetal deformity, and carefully ascertained evidence of the likelihood of damage to the emotional, mental, and physical health of the mother. And they reaffirmed this resolution the year after Roe v. Wade ruling, again in 1976. So initially, after Roe v. Wade, at least Southern Baptists, who are the largest, Protestant denomination in the U.S., were in favor of it. They celebrated it. They thought, yep, this is a good decision. This is the right thing to do. Now, we know what happened to change everyone's mind was Francis Schaeffer, unfortunately, the little Dutch guy, convinced Jerry Falwell to start speaking out, take a stand against abortion. And because even before that, Jerry Falwell had said, he was on record saying that abortion was a Catholic issue and had nothing to do with him. And he would not want to take a stand on that he just wanted to preach the gospel. But Francis Schaeffer and C. Everett Koop, by the way, who became the Surgeon General under Reagan, convinced him. The two of them together convinced Falwell to begin speaking out against abortion and to oppose Roe versus Wade. So that's really kind of what, and the whole moral majority and all that kind of stuff with Reagan and all that kind of stuff, the religious right, is kind of what pushed it into being a quote unquote Christian view. But before that, the Christian view was, or at least the Protestant view, was that abortion should be legal, and certainly in cases of incest and rape and the health of the mother and all that kind of stuff.
And even today, correct me if I'm wrong, but the majority of people are pro-choice in some way. There's only a small percentage that are absolutely against all abortion for all circumstances, regardless of the situation.
It's a minority, yeah. It's
a minority, yeah. And so it's just strange that in this country, I mean, for me, it's like you shouldn't have to justify an abortion to me. Like if you're pregnant or you whatever, it's not I'm not affected by it.
Right.
I'm not impacted by it. I shouldn't really have I don't have a strong opinion on it. My strong opinion is we need to give rights to women. That's my strong opinion on it. And so, but even if you had to justify it, it's like most people are willing to say, yeah, in certain circumstances, abortions should be accessible and safe and inexpensive. And so it's just strange to me that a group of, I think, five justices are like, yeah. Oh no, we're gonna roll this back. We're gonna make a decision for millions and millions of folks who can give birth, and it comes down to 5 people, and the small group of Trumpists and people like that who put them in power.
Yep.
That's a fucked up system in my mind.
It is. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. Again, to talk about statistics, and again, I encourage our listeners to go and Google this and look it up and read the studies. But the truth is that since Roe v. Wade, abortions in America have been on the steady decline, and right now they are Correct. The lowest they have ever been in the history of this country.
Correct.
So again, what the outcry is against something that kind of already seems to be under control. Like it's rare. It's more rare today for people to have abortions, for women to have abortions than it was in the 1970s. So
I don't give a fuck about statistics, though.
No, I know. And of course,
that's a sad part.
Yeah. The bigger issue is, I think, it's not just about abortion, right? The bigger issue is that conservative Christian Republicans as a political, base, have basically seized control of the Supreme Court and have, again, if this goes through, have demonstrated that they can overturn something that's been the law of the land since the 1970s, with just, flicking a switch, and now it's reversed. And so the scary thing would be, let's suppose in the midterms, uh, Republicans gain control of the House and the Senate. So now they would control Congress and the Supreme Court. And if with just the Supreme Court they can overturn Roe v. Wade, what else could they do? I mean, I'm sure they could. They've already got a checklist, right? Well, I would guess gay marriage might be next.
That's right.
And then some transgender laws would be enacted, and or any laws giving them freedoms or equal rights will be overturned. New laws would be passed that would restrict, homosexual union or transgender activities, behaviors. I mean, you can go down the list. You can kind of tell where this might be going. And the scary thing is, what it's going to do, because this specific ruling on Roe v. Wade, what it will do is, so it removes the federal law, the federal mandate for Roe v. Wade to become legal, and puts it now at the state level, right?
Correct.
So what this is going to do is further divide the United States of America will no longer be the United States of America. You will have red states that are going to become even more red than before, blue states that will become more blue than ever before, and it'll be over at least initially over this issue of abortion. And so if you want an abortion and you live in Florida, Texas, Idaho, Mississippi, anywhere in the South, you're screwed. And so you're going to end up having to move to California, Oregon, New York.
Which people generally, okay, so this ruling comes against people of color.
Yep.
Black, Hispanic, Latino, Latinx, whatever.
People in poverty.
People in poverty.
Yep.
And they can't just up and move.
No, they can't. No, they cannot.
So you're right. This is the precedent set. This is it's like a political philosophical way of understanding things. Is that we're going to kick it to the states? Well, what else? Like you just mentioned, what else can they kick to the states? Gay marriage.
Yep.
Interracial marriage.
Oh yeah. Don't put it past them, my friend. There are states in the union that still are upset about the fact that a black person can marry a white person.
If you make this the precedence, you can then make the argument. This is kind of my reductio ad absurdum, hopefully.
Sure. Yeah.
That you can argue against interracial marriage as a federal. You might be for interracial marriage, but as a federal precedent, you can't set it because then we have to kick it to the states because we have to follow this sort of ruling and this sort of line of logic. And now you're kicking things to the states. And now you're creating a situation in which we go back to looking like we have Union states and Confederate states.
That's exactly
because you goddamn know that Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, I mean, all these southern states are going to have plenty of people who think that's a good idea to go back to things like a new Jim Crow.
Yep.
And I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying that that's a slippery slope. It's going to happen. I'm saying that some people will get it in their minds. Some people who even have power will get it in their minds that because this precedence is set, we can now push this next envelope.
Yeah, and see, you have to be able to take a step back and hopefully and say, once civil rights become not a federal mandate, not something where the United States of America has decided every person is, has equal civil rights. But no, we're going to let states decide who has civil rights and who doesn't have civil rights. That is a step, not just a step backwards, it's like 20 steps backwards. Like we are going the wrong direction. We are dividing the united, quote unquote, United States of America. And so that now every state is just going to have its own sort of, it's going to become its own little nation state and say, well, in Georgia, you can't, if you're black, you can't marry a white person. If you're gay, you can't be married. They're just going to roll back all these. I mean, again, we could say they're going to, but what you're doing is you're you're making that possible. You are
Right.
empowering people in
Right.
those situations to say, well, why not? And if, as long as we have
Exactly.
power, as long as we have power and we can control the Supreme Court and Congress, that what would stop us?
Exactly. I mean, you're like you said, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. But look, we have people as elected officials who are Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Madison Cawthorn. You don't think these people like some backward ass shit?
Right.
They want to roll shit back to some fucking crazy shit. You
Yeah.
don't think I mean, they don't individually have the power to do so. I don't think. But people like that are becoming more and more norm
Yep.
as elected officials. And
Yep.
if you don't think they're going to roll some shit back to some antiquated bullshit,
Yep.
stripping people of color of civil rights, gay and lesbian and LGBT other LGBTQ people of their civil rights,
Yep.
man, you're under a rock or something. You don't know these
Yeah,
people.
it's scary. And we didn't even mention immigration, right? So that's
There
another
you go.
issue. That's another issue that I could see them wanting on their checklist if they want to turn the clock back. And as you were talking too, I was thinking about like when we lived in Idaho we lived there for a year. I remember Wendy and I had just moved there, moved into our house. I turned on the local news. You kind of want to get acclimated to where your new hometown. And we're watching the local news there in Boise. And no kidding, this was like the first week we were there. There was a case in the court. I think it had already been decided, where the state officials had decided not to prosecute like a 45-year-old man who had impregnated like a 14-year-old girl and allowed them to get married because, and this was the quote, because in Idaho we are pro family.
Oh, fuck off.
And I'm like,
Oh
so now,
my
but
God.
so that of course I'm thinking, holy crap, what year is it? Really? But now, and then the shocking thing was, so not only is that still the law in Idaho that a 14-year-old girl can marry a 50-year-old man with the parents' consent. By the way, you can do that, like I think in Tennessee and Kentucky and a whole bunch of other states in the union. Like I'm not going like, what? How is this still possible? It's 2022 as we're recording this, and it's still legal for like a grown man to marry a teenager. Like this is scary. Like
In the name of family
in
values.
the name of family values, what the hell?
Yeah, and it's supposedly the worldly heathenistic
Yes.
progressives and liberals who are going to destroy the family and allow man boy relationships and pederasty and all this bullshit. It's like, wait a second, but y'all are projecting, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Because in any other normal society, what you have made law would be considered like a crime. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? I don't know, man. It's kind of crazy. I'm disappointed. I really am. Like, first of all, I should have said this by now, but I hate talking about politics. By the way, and I really
No,
don't.
I know. I was we're 30 minutes in. I'm like, damn, I got Keith Giles on a politic run here.
Right, right. Because again, I feel like we can talk about these things, right? But ultimately, I think the average person, and I think this has always been the frustration, certainly even around this issue of abortion, is that the average person all we can do is complain. Like we really don't have a lot we can do about it. Like
No.
we can complain about it, but I mean, I don't know any Supreme Court justices I can get on the phone and talk to them, or
No, I think there's some things that I think if corporations, let's say, want to
yeah,
save some face, right? So you're
sure,
an international or even national corporation, and you have good profits, and you can pay your employees well, and you should.
yeah,
They should be. This is what I would do if I was, a rich billionaire or some shit. I would pay for all of my employees who need access to this sort of healthcare. I will pay for your travel to go out to a state
yeah,
that cares about women.
yeah,
Fuck you, all you states who are going to do these trigger laws and are going to, but, send them to California or send them to Washington, or I'm assuming all the other sort of bluer states.
yeah.
I'll pay for your flight. I'll pay for your healthcare. I'll pay for your flight back.
Yeah.
And that's part of the company policy. So if you're a corporate, tycoon and you're listening to the show, I don't know why you are, but maybe you are. That's what people can do outside of the Supreme Court decision, because we're in a very small, a much smaller world now, right? With the internet and with corporate, reach can go far beyond what it used to be.
Right.
Do those sort of things. We can't. You and I can't, Keith.
No.
If as owners and founders of the Heretic Happy Hour or Apostates Anonymous.
Yes.
Yeah, we do not have the ability to send our employees anywhere. But
right.
if we could, that's what I would do.
Right. Well, I mean, the other thing maybe too, I mean, you're talking about corporations. I mean, this is one of the things I talk about in the book too, in Jesus Untangled, is that shameless plug, is that really our vote doesn't count. And this is based on research that has been done. I want to say, I've got the book next to me and I don't want to flip through it, but I think it was like a Harvard study that was done over like a 20-year period and determined that the will of the people had 0% impact on how congressmen or senators voted on something, in whether a law would pass or not. And which is frustrating because, we elect them, they're representing us, we pay taxes. Especially the work, unless you're a billionaire, you who don't pay taxes, right? The rest of us are paying taxes, and yet the will of the people, our will, is not what drives policy. It's not what drives the laws that get passed. However, there was a group of people that did strongly influence whether a law was passed or not, and those were billionaires and corporate lobbies who don't pay any taxes. And so that's the most frustrating thing, is like, so if we know that is kind of the government we have, believe it or not, it's not a government by the people, for the people, and of the people.
For the corporation.
It's for the corporations, which is the reason, by the way, it's the reason why several years ago, legislation was passed to classify corporations as people. You remember Mitt Romney saying, corporations are people, my friend?
Yeah.
Because by making corporations legally classified as people, now that gives a corporation free speech, right? And now they can be treated that way. So anyway, that if we know that really is the way things work, the corporations and the billionaires, they actually have more influence over the government than you and I. Then if we could influence those corporations,
that's who we put pressure on then.
Yes. Yeah. Then they can put pressure on Congress to overturn things and change laws. And so that's really our only thing, is like, you can start, petitions, campaigns in front of like large corporations and write letters.
That in itself is hard though, because to change the corporate mindset, you have to change it with the dollar.
Yeah.
But corporations can make shit for cheap because they can make shit.
That's right.
A lot of it, if you and I wanted to print a book, it's going to cost us a lot. But if, if Amazon's going to print a book, it's going to cost about $2.
Almost nothing. That's right.
And so it takes privilege to use the power of your dollar and put it elsewhere.
So maybe we should attend the Brett Kavanaugh Institute, because I think that would help us understand how to use our privilege.
Well, if you're going to have privilege, you have to learn how to use it. I now that I think about it, maybe that shouldn't have been our sponsor, because I don't know if Brett Kavanaugh used his privilege in the correct way. Oh yeah, that's right. It's satire. I forgot.
It is. Yes, remember that.
But it's difficult, and this is why I got kicked out of a Facebook group one time that I was in for a long time.
I remember that. It
was really unfortunate.
Yes, it
was. Because I simply made the apt and accurate observation that it takes privilege to go green, right? So in the same line of argumentation, it takes privilege to divert your dollars to local or ethical or responsible corporations, because when you're ethical and you're responsible, your profit margins are slimmer and your prices are generally higher, just the way it is. Like, and so if you're poor or underserved or not privileged, you don't have that choice, right?
Right.
I mean, you have to go with shit. I got to put food on the table, or I got to go with this product because it's the only one that's cheap enough for me.
That's right. No, you're exactly right. That is exactly right. In fact, I remember that you got kicked out of that group. I left in solidarity, by the way, because I was like so upset that they had done that and it was really stupid.
I
Because I
think,
think you made a great point, and it is true. Like, yeah, people living in poverty, like Wendy and I really, went through the whole like organic, eating organic, no GMOs, all that stuff. But yeah,
yeah,
you recognize that it costs money to do that, right? It's more
totally.
expensive to buy,
Yeah,
to if you really, really want to go that way. Because again, if
yeah,
you're living in poverty, you can afford Taco Bell,
yeah,
the dollar menu at
yeah,
McDonald's. Like, yeah, you don't have the privilege of like, I'm going to go to the grocery store and pay an extra 30% for non-GMO, vegetables and fruit and things like that.
yeah,
Like, well, you could, but I guess you'd eat a whole lot less. And
yeah.
so, yeah, it is true. I think you definitely were right about that. And
And even if it's not and even if you financially can do it, it's like it takes a lot of time. Like let's say you're really good at gardening and you can get these plants for cheap. You
sure,
start them by seed, you do all this, and it doesn't cost you a lot of money. Well, that's time it takes. But if you're
right.
working two jobs and you're a single mom or something, you don't have that time.
Well, listen
I
too.
I garden because I spend some of my time doing that, but it's like shit. This is a lot of work. Not
Yeah.
everyone's gonna have that privilege.
Well, not only that, people living in poverty are in apartments. They don't
Exactly.
have a place a patch of
Right.
ground to
Right.
dig up. And it's not even their ground to dig up. Like
Right.
if they dug up the ground and planted a really nice garden, their landlord would be like, "What the hell did you just do? Right? You
Right.
ruined my lawn. You're gonna have to pay me for it." Like, yeah, there's just so many levels of things where, and we don't think about these things, right? But
No.
we need to consider how much. Yes, we talk about certain things and like, well, but not everybody gets to vote with their dollar because their dollar
Right.
doesn't go very far.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is why, again, this is such a shitty decision that five people. I'm assuming it's 5-4. I think that's
Yeah,
how the vote's
I think
going.
it is something like that.
It's either 5-4 or 6-3. I think it's 5-4. Where five people are deciding what's best for millions, and
Yeah,
that's not right.
yeah,
That shouldn't be right, no matter what side of the aisle you stand on. It
right,
really shouldn't. Like even if you're anti-abortion, it should it should really bother you that 5 people are making that decision.
right.
Even if you happen to agree with it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because here's the thing too, though. It's also not that I'm pro-abortion because I'm not like yay abortion,
No
but
one's
I
that.
no, no, no. So, but it's that I'm in favor of a woman having the right to decide about her own body, what's best for her, and if she's carrying a child, you know, what to do about that. Like one of the best things I have heard, and I just rewatched it again today. Pete Buttigieg, when he was running for president, was on like some Fox News town hall thing, and they were trying to get him on, the abortion thing about late term abortions, and are you in favor of late term abortions? Are you in favor of a woman terminating her pregnancy at 7 months or something like that, 8 months? And he had just a wonderful observation. He goes, okay, but let's think about this in practical terms, right? First of all, and again, I'm just kind of paraphrasing what he said. First of all, he said those late term abortions account for less than 1% of all abortions in America. So let's just understand this is not an epidemic. This is not the majority of abortions. When they take place, they are not late term. Of the ones that are late term, that they go to 6, 7, 8 months, right? He goes, think about it. If you're a woman and you have carried a child for that long, you probably picked out a name. You probably, bought the crib and you've decorated the room. Like you're expecting to have this child. You don't carry a child that long expecting that you're going to abort it. And so when
Right.
you get the news from your doctor that there are some severe physical or mental deformities or illnesses or issues, or that your life is in danger if you carry this child to term, this is a heartbreaking decision that you have to make. And who should be making that decision other than the woman and her doctor? Not, five people
Yeah.
sitting on a court, fully removed. Like the government should not make the decision for them before they even have an opportunity to think about it. Like, no,
Right.
the woman should make that decision, and
Right.
only the woman should make that decision. And so, what if I'm pro anything? I think people that are in favor of choice That's what they're in favor of. They're in favor of having the woman have autonomy over and control over her own agency, her own body.
Which should be a conservative issue because they drone on and on and on and on about limited government.
Yes.
And then they're like, oh, but no, we need government to step in now.
Yes.
Well, you only want them to step in. You only want big government when it suits what you personally believe.
Of course.
Which is like this great hypocrisy and this great irony. And it's just so tiring because it's like, not only is, like we've said, Roe v. Wade has made abortion safer and less often.
Yes, it's true.
You're gonna. Those are just facts. Those are not political facts. That's been established as a fact.
Yes, it is. We have already, because, or at least since Roe v. Wade, we have reduced abortions to the lowest it has ever been in the history of this country. And yeah, so it's like we're people are using this nuclear option to solve a problem that isn't really a problem. At least it's not the problem that it's been historically. And
no.
And because again, it isn't about solving that problem. It's about exerting your views, your religious views, using political means. And let me tell you, studying the history, not just American history, but world history, Christian history. Let's go back and see that starting with Constantine, it has always been a bad idea for Christians to use the power of the state to impose their religious views on everybody else. That's how you got the Crusades. That's how you got the Inquisitions. That's how people were tortured and put to death for disagreeing with this theology. We're moving towards a theocracy. Believe it or not, we really are. Well, I think one of the things we didn't mention that I also would fully expect, for as long as the conservative Christians have political power, prayer in school, because that was the other issue. By the way, the whole abortion issue with Reagan that came up, the whole moral majority and all that kind of stuff with Francis Schaeffer, it was a two-pronged issue that fired up the Christian base to support Ronald Reagan in the election, and was driven by the religious right. It was two issues. One was abortion, and the other one was bringing prayer back into school. So you wait. That'll be, and then it'll be schools. Public schools have to teach the Bible. So we'll have Bible classes, mandatory prayer. In the morning before classes begin, we'll have a prayer time. Like, we're moving. It sounds cliche to say this, and I hate to be alarmist. Again, I want to be like, oh, be afraid. But shit, maybe be afraid, because it feels like we're moving towards a theocracy, which is starting to look more like The Handmaid's Tale. And that's not a good thing. I don't think we want to live. I don't want to live in that kind of world.
No. It's I think you make a great point. Like, this is nothing more than using the state to push your religious beliefs.
Yeah,
that's it. And we're supposed to have separation of church and state, but we don't.
No, we don't.
We don't. And we find human beings will always find loopholes and workarounds. And this is that. This is a workaround to saying exactly what it is. They're not going to come out and say, well, we believe the Bible says this, so that's what we're going to push. But that's pretty much where they and I don't know how they've gotten that. There's a recipe for abortion in the Bible, mandated by God through the priest.
That's right.
The Bible defines life as breath. You have the clay, and you have to have breathed life through it in order to have a living nefesh.
That's right.
So I don't know what Bible they're reading. So again, this is Schaeffer. This is, who was it? Falwell.
Yeah.
This is their understanding of Christianity
and of the Bible. That's right.
And of the Bible, but it's not a Jewish understanding of the Bible.
No.
It's not a Christian understanding. True. Just reading the Bible as an historian, just looking at it face value. Looking at it, the context, historical, critical. This has nothing to do with that, because there's nowhere in the Bible that says anything about what they're saying.
No.
It's all straw man, demonization.
Right.
And unfortunately, they've used the system to game the system.
Yeah. And the only verse I think that I'm aware of that you could potentially use to support their view, again, and only if you ignore like you said, the recipe for how to have an abortion, how to go to the priest so he can perform an abortion. That's actually in the Bible, and like we mentioned, the Levitical laws that do not uh, hold the life of a fetus, an unborn fetus, at the same level as someone who's alive and born and walking around. So again,
They
exactly.
only use Leviticus to condemn gay people.
That's
That's
right.
all Leviticus is for.
But I'm
They
still going to
still
eat
love bacon, they still
bacon,
love shrimp,
shrimp,
and they don't pay
lobster.
attention to what you just said.
That's right. So if you ignore all that, then the only thing you can hold on to is, well, David said in Psalms that God knew me in the womb before I was born. There you go. See, that means that he was a person before he was born. That's the only one. That's the only verse that's the only one I've ever heard used. But here's the thing: the bottom line is still this: we shouldn't be using the Bible to pass laws in this nation because we are not a
No,
Christian nation. The
nor
Constitution,
should we be.
nor should we be. And the Constitution doesn't mention Jesus, doesn't quote Jesus, has nothing to do with Jesus. Um, it might mention, well, we are created by God, whatever, but that's it. Like that's the closest you're going to get. It's a theist, but not Christian. And we shouldn't be using the Bible. And like you said, that unfortunately, I know that they do. I know that those people are quoting the Bible, at least in private meetings and fundraisers, right? They're quoting scripture
Right.
because they're talking
But
to their base.
they're doing what they accuse us of doing.
Yeah.
Those of us who take the Bible seriously
Yeah.
in scholarship and everything. They accuse us of cherry picking, right?
That's right.
But that's exactly what they do. And in the truest sense of the word, they're forming their doctrines and their ideologies and then plucking out the scriptures.
Right.
Whereas like those of us who actually quote unquote cherry pick, no, we're just like we're looking at it in context and we're trying to see patterns and we're trying to see methods and methodology and how did Jesus exegete and all this stuff.
Yep.
They're literally just cherry picking.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they will quote that David passage in Psalm.
Yep.
But they won't go to Numbers and say,
Right.
"Oh, her abdomen swells and that's an abortion." Like they
Right.
won't. No, they'll come up with some Simone Biles type gymnastic routine, and they'll figure it out.
Oh no, they totally have. Like
yeah.
I've written blog posts about that. I've mentioned that on Facebook, and
Yeah.
I have watched Christians try to say, "Oh, that's not an abortion. That's not what's happening there." Dude, I can freaking read. I know what that says. If it's speaking to the man, and it's only addressing men.
Except for that one scroll they found.
Yeah, except for that one, but they went and buried it again because we're not ready for it. Yeah, but that it addresses the men and it says if you suspect that your wife has been unfaithful, take her to the priest. He will mix together this little concoction, force her to drink it, and if she's been unfaithful, she'll abort the child will not be born. Right? It'll abort the child. Right. That is a recipe for an abortion. It's a pregnant woman, and if she's unfaithful, she will drink something that will terminate that pregnancy. That is an abortion.
Yeah. I will give them this, that it's potentially an abortion.
It's potentially an abortion, yes.
But you only have to bring her to the priest if you suspect that there's been adultery committed. So if she hasn't actually committed adultery and she isn't actually pregnant, then it's not an abortion.
Right.
But you damn know well that at some point, I mean, it could be even that they aborted the guy's baby.
Yeah.
Or the guy's fetus, because he could just be suspecting, but she didn't, but maybe she was pregnant with his baby or something.
Well, see, when I read that passage in Leviticus, to me, what it comes across as, it's kind of like voodoo mumbo jumbo. It's sort of like, I don't think in reality. Okay. So if we took ourselves way, way back and there is a guy and he kind of does suspect his wife and he grabs her and he drags her over to the priest and he tells the priest, I suspect that this child she's carrying isn't my child. Let's make her drink this stuff, right? That because the woman believes, they've convinced her that if she drinks this magic potion, and if she's been unfaithful, that she will lose her baby. She won't actually drink it because she's going to be so scared. If she was unfaithful, she's going to blurt it out. She's going to say, "Oh no, I'm so sorry." Blah blah blah. I think it's a head game, right? It's like you're just creating this thing to scare people. And so it's just it's a way of sort of smoking out your wife if she's been unfaithful, to scare her that if I
Sure.
do this and I go through these motions, if she thinks it's going to happen, she believes it's going to happen, then the truth will come out. I think that's all. That I don't think anyone was actually, and no babies were actually aborted, because I don't think whatever she was drinking would actually cause a miscarriage. So I don't think that was the point. I think the point was, again, just sort of like, hey guys, we got your back. We're going to play this little game. And so if you think your wife's unfaithful, take her to the priest. We're going to play this little game, go through the motions, and we'll smoke her out if she's being unfaithful to you.
Maybe. But
That's
at the end of the day, like, it's the Bible, so it shouldn't be our deciding factor
right.
on any of this.
That's exactly right.
It all comes down to, again, like, these are our opinions on the issue, and I would always refer to women to making their own healthcare decisions with the help of their doctor and their medical care team.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean that, and I as a man, the only thing I can do is my part. So after we had my daughter,
yeah,
my wife and I didn't want her to be on birth control, and I didn't want to wear a condom, so I got fixed, just like my terrier. Well, not just like my terrier.
Hopefully not just like
not just like my terrier, but the human version, right? Through a urologist.
So you took the terrier in. The vet did. Hey, by the way, doc, while you're
2 for 1. 2 for 1.
2 for 1. Can you just do a little snip here? Yeah.
No, but I did my part, ladies. So I see those memes of, like, the men should be have a vasectomy, and then when they show that they're able to be responsible, then they can have it reversed. Snip, snap, snip, snap.
You can do it.
And
reverse.
So I don't think people are literally advocating for forced vasectomy, and I wouldn't advocate for that either. But the meme is funny, and the point is taken. Like, I have a responsibility in this too, and I'll do my part. That's just me personally.
And definitely this is the problem too, is that women, all of the burden, all the blame, all the guilt and shame is always placed on the woman.
Right.
And you can see it also reflected in. Whoops, sorry about that.
Oh, you got a landline there, Keith? What do you got?
No, it's my ringtone.
Oh, you got an old school ringtone.
Sorry about that. We'll edit.
Sorry to our editor.
Sorry to my editor. Yes.
I'm gonna turn that up.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So it's reflected also in like the rape laws, right? Like if a woman accuses a man of rape, she has to prove it. She has to, you let him on, or how were you dressed, or it's never on the guy. Like and it feels like, when I see the way legislation goes, and it's not just like this legislation, but when I see the way court cases go, convictions go in cases of guys being accused of rape, it almost feels like the way it is like, especially if you're a white guy, every guy gets one rape, right? It's just a mistake. Your Honor, he's a good guy. He's a good student. He's a good athlete, whatever. Don't ruin his life. He just had this one rape, give him a mulligan. And that's what it feels like. It's like you get every guy gets to have one rape, apparently, because he's never done it before, and he promises not to do it again. It's really sad to me, because I've seen over and over again. I know we're getting onto another topic now, but I've seen over and over again. There was even one like so bad where a guy was keeping a woman in a cage and like sexually, assaulting her, and I don't even think, if he went to jail, it was something like 4 months or something. It was something ridiculous. Like, are you kidding me? Like, women are treated as if they're worthless. Their lives don't count. Their sexuality, their bodies mean nothing. Yep.
It's still there. All that patriarchal bullshit that people think, that some people think, oh, it's gone, we're moved on. It's the same thing with racism. Oh, we moved on from slavery or Jim Crow. And it's like, no, it's still there. I mean, in subtle ways, in some way. And my daughter, she's 11, she's in 5th grade. They have a field trip at the end of the year. It's going to some body of water. I don't know what they're doing. And the girls cannot wear a 2-piece, but the boys are allowed to have their shirts off. And the rationale is because, if you wear a 2-piece, you're going to distract the boys.
Yes.
And my daughter, this is where the generations are different. my daughter says it's not my responsibility to control the thoughts of boys. And I was like, oh, preach, sister. Someone get me an organ. Preach. And so she went and talked to the teacher. And I was like, well, keep in mind that you should talk to him. Keep in mind that this is above him. But please, speak your mind, because it still is this backwards view that men can't, or boys, men or boys, can't control their thoughts. And so therefore, women need to control it for them by controlling their bodies. Yeah. This is purity culture in a liberal school in California. This is still the tendrils of purity culture in the most liberal state with the most liberal system, the school system, right?
Right.
So no, this conservative puritanical ideology is still embedded in the system.
That's right.
And it's always against women.
Yes. And that really is, I think after almost an hour of talking, we have finally arrived at what the real underlying problem really is. And it is this patriarchal system that we have in our society, which begins with our government, right? And just continues to be perpetuated in various ways, including this most recent decision.
Yeah. This most recent decision is a symptom of the deeper systemic issue. It's gone from systematic, where it's on purpose.
Yep.
And it still might be somewhat systematic, but it's definitely systemic.
Yes. Yeah. And because, unfortunately, Christianity is born out of a very patriarchal system, it has continued to be a patriarchal, for the most part, patriarchal religion. And so, in the name of religion, this patriarchal values are continuing to be perpetuated, which is really sad.
Yes, it is. Well, with that, I guess we better sign off. It's been about an hour.
I think, yes.
I think we've said, as two men, we've said enough.
More than enough, I'm sure. Yes.
All right. Well, until next time, please, everyone, rate and review this show. Share on social media. Tell your friends and your loved ones if you are comfortable doing so.
Yes.
We apologize for talking about so much triggering things, but, this is the nature of... the times we live in. We have to talk about these things in some way, right?
Yeah. And don't forget to call our hotline as well. Let us know what you think. But be sure to mention it's for the Apostates Anonymous podcast.
Yes. If you could, 240-343-7379. And please just flood it with Apostates Anonymous stuff.
Please. That would be hilarious.
It would make us laugh.
It would make me really happy.
All right. Peace and love, everyone. Bye, Keith.
All right. See you, man.